Hello guys! In this video I'm going to share with you a couple of tips for drawing white fur with pastels. So through this video I also wanted to show you how I made a portrait of my wonderful and beautiful cat called Sky. While we speak about building the white fur with pastels, my cat is one incredible, cuddly, lazy cat. I wanted to draw portraits for both of my cats, and so here is the first one of Sky. First of all, let's talk a bit about your choice of paper, as paper choice as well as the colors of the paper can determine how your drawings will look like in the end. So this is as important as choosing the right colors and layering process. Now I chose this gray paper as this seems like a tone that would go really well with the color of the fur of my cat. Now he is a mixture of a Persian cat and a Siamese one, so his fur is quite specific. There are some beige tones, gray and white, and this paper was a really nice choice when it comes to his portrait. If I chose a white paper, I wouldn't be able to to create that fur with the white pastel pencils. So whenever you have to draw an animal that has loads of white fur, rather choose a colored paper that will allow your white pencils and your white shades to be seen properly. Now when it comes to colors itself, I started here with some gray tones, both warm and cool grays. I wanted to combine them both. The first layer were mostly in gray, but as I wanted to do some more details work and get that look of a fur, I combined the white over it. Also, having an undertone first is something really important here as well. I wasn't paying attention to draw a very detailed fur right from the start. I was more focusing on the first layers, the undertones that would make the fur look great once you add some details over it. This is such a great technique, especially when using pastel pencils, as this method can really help you out when it comes to drawing any kind of fur. I usually start with some mid-tones or even a bit darker tones, as with pastels later on you can go over with a lighter color and it will blend your colors perfectly. So this is a technique that you will mostly use for all animal portraits, as in order to get some really fine details and really nice rendered fur, even though you have a colored paper, you still have to have some first layers that are going to be darker than what you actually see in the photo. So for example, I chose loads of gray colors as my undertone, and then as I started to get more into details, I was choosing lighter and lighter colors to get those good and proper realistic details. Also what I did here is I blocked the background with some very dark shades, as again all these those small hairs, whiskers and fur can be nicely seen even with the darkest possible tones of the background. So first I did the background only to be able to have those details nicely done later on. This is an awesome way of getting some proper results with pastels. I have to say that working with pastels is really a one-of-a-kind experience. So if you are thinking about starting to explore and experience how it is working with pastel pencils, I definitely encourage you to try it out, as this technique is so meditative and beautiful. And what is good here is that this medium can also be quite forgiving, whereas the colored pencils are not as forgiving as this medium. And also working with pastels is a bit faster medium as well, so whatever you prefer the most, of course, go for it. But as for me, this medium is an absolute gold. I basically rested throughout the drawing process. It was so nice working on the fur in this way, combining lights, mid-tones and darks, and seeing this portrait comes to life in this way. Another thing is that you can easily combine both soft pastels and pastel pencils, where with the soft pastels you can do all the undertones, or even with the pencils, of course. As for certain parts, I chose pastel pencils rather than pastel sticks, but if you have some larger area that you need to fill in and to do an undertone, soft pastels can be much faster in this case, and once you blend them, you can go over with the pastel pencils and get those very detailed work. The only thing I have to mention here is not to put too much of the pigment during your first couple of layers, because if you do, you would fill in the tooth of the paper and then later on you wouldn't be able to add more details on top of it. For some people who don't know what tooth of the paper is, that's how we call the texture of the paper itself. And once you add too much layers or press your pencils or soft pastels really hard, you will fill in the tooth of the paper, and like this, there will no longer be enough space for you to build your values any further. So when you start with your drawing, make sure not to put too many layers from the start, and not to go into detail straight away, but rather discover or suggest to yourself what would be the undertone and what color that will stay behind the fur details would look good as a base. For me, I chose the grays, both warm and cool, as the best way for his fur would be like the gray colors. But for example, if you have to work on a portrait where you have some gray furs, for example the darker ones, my choice of the undertone color would be either black or a very dark gray along with a bit of dark blue. And then as I transfer to the details with some midtones of gray, I would choose some grayish tones to go over these layers for the best results. And like this, you will be able to get such nice and rich contrast, because the whole point here basically is to have something that your light tones could be contrast with. So always determine first what color your undertone color would be, layer that one first, or combine a couple of them, blend them either with your fingers or with some blenders, cotton buds, blending stumps or tortillas, and once you finish that, start building the fur slowly. You can see how this technique worked really well in this case. It's really nice seeing this portrait coming to life. Another very important thing to mention here is that you have to find a way to keep your pencil sharp almost at all times, because once you start building the fur as we want to imitate the fur as much as possible, having your pencil sharpened almost at all times would make your end result much better than working with the unsharpened pencils. And also keep in mind that while building the details and the fur itself, you still have to use both dark pencils and light. So in this case, just white for the details won't be enough. We'll still have to get that feeling like it's a very rich and powerful fur. So I'm using both dark tones for the details and the light ones, because like this as well, it will have more contrast and the drawing itself would look much richer with all the details. The last thing to mention, but not the least, is to enjoy the process. I know this sounds weird after everything technical that I just shared, but here it's not just about technical stuff. So it's about really feeling your intuition and let your feelings guide you here, maybe a bit more than all the rules and technical stuff and what goes first and what last, as you never know what might come up from it. It's exactly how I started working with pastels. I haven't watched any of the tutorials, I just got them and started to play around with them, as this medium is really so fun to experiment with. I let my intuition guide me more than keeping in mind thousands of rules here, and I found my own way of creating animal fur, but maybe you will find even better one and more efficient one. So after sharing all these tips that I find helpful, you can listen to them and try doing the same thing. But what I also want to encourage you is to try it out yourself and try some new techniques and let yourself enjoy during this process, because you never know what you might discover when it comes to your own skills and knowledge. Just be patient, curious, and the most important thing is to have fun. I truly hope that this video helped you out a bit. Also, let me know in the comment section, what do you think about this little guy right here? He personally loved the end result as well. He was really happy with how his portrait turned out. So I truly hope that you will like it as well. This will be all for today's video. I see you all soon in my next one. Much love, guys. Bye.